Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. We begin by praising Allah, we praise Him, we seek His help, and we ask for His forgiveness. And we take refuge with Allah from the evil of ourselves and from the evil consequence of our evil actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can misguide, but whomsoever Allah leaves to go astray, no one can guide. And I testify that indeed, most certainly Allah alone is worthy of worship, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the servant of Allah and His final messenger. My dear brothers and sisters, today we are going to begin to embark upon a very important journey, an important journey in respect to discovering and understanding the major sins in Islam. And what we're going to be talking about over the next few episodes is the major sins concerning the family. It is a very, very important topic, and as we have said before, often we can understand the severity of a sin when we look at the importance of its opposite. So we want to talk about disobedience to parents, and the disobedience of the wife to the husband, and breaking off ties of relationship. And then there are many things that are connected with that, like adultery and fornication and homosexuality. And all of these things have a connection with this very, very important topic of the family. And it's very important because, my dear brothers and sisters, the family is the bedrock and it is the basis of society. If the family is corrupt, the society will be corrupt. If things go wrong with the family, things will go wrong with the whole of the society. So that is why it is very, very important to preserve the ties of the family, of the husband and the wife, of the parents and the child, to keep the ties of relationship, and to protect people from those things that are going to be destructive and that are going to cause corruption in the family, which will lead to corruption in society. And very sadly, we find that although this is the primary responsibility in reality of rulers and governments, that they should really make sure that the environment in any given society is conducive to the success of the family and to the maintenance and the keeping up of moral standards, and protecting people from those things which will cause corruption and disruption to the family. And these matters are not paid attention to. Rather, it seems today as if everyone's priority is how much money we can make and how prosperous we can be. But in reality, we will discover that if we do not respect our parents, if the wife does not listen to and obey her husband, if the husband does not take care of his wife and children, if we allow fornication and adultery and lewdness to operate in the society, then all the money in the world is not going to do that society any good. Because what will happen is that society will inevitably begin to crumble, and eventually it will corrupt. If the society is disrupted, who and from where will the children learn their morals and their manners? And what morals and manners will they learn? This is something that we need to think about. So one of the most grievous of the major sins is disobedience to the parents. And that is because one of the greatest of the virtues is obedience to parents. And it's very interesting that we find in many different religions throughout the world, whether it be Confucianism, where obedience to parents and loyalty to them is one of the most important and stressed virtues, or Hinduism or Buddhism, and of course in the religion of Islam and Christianity and Judaism, all of them emphasize the importance of obedience and respect to parents. So we're going to look at some of those verses of the Quran and sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I hope that my brothers and sisters, that these verses of the Quran, these sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be a reminder to you of the importance of your parents, of your family, and of maintaining that and its position in not only having a happy life for us as individuals, but of course for all of us as human beings having a peaceful and happy society. So let us look to the Quran, and we see in Surah Al-Isra, which is the 17th surah, in the 22nd to 24th verses. And your Lord has decreed that you worship none except Him, and that you treat your parents well. If one or both of them reach old age along with you, never even say uff to them, nor repulse them, but rather speak to them words of honor, and out of mercy lower to them the wing of humility and say, my Lord, have mercy on them as they took care of me when I was little. My brothers and sisters, let's take a bit of time to contemplate and think about these beautiful verses. First of all, let us see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He begins by mentioning that we should worship Him and no one except Him. And straight after that, He tells us that we should treat our parents well. It's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is connecting the good treatment of parents with the worship of Him. And indeed, that most certainly is the case. One of the names of Allah is Ar-Rahman, which means the most merciful, the most compassionate. Ar-Rahman is a name of God that donates kindness, generosity, mercy, and the word, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, Ar-Rahman is derived from the word Rahm, which means womb. It means womb. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that whoever disconnects, whoever breaks away the ties of the womb, meaning who breaks the ties of relationship, the tie between the mother and the child, the ties of relationship, whether it's the mother or the child or the wider relationship, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will break off from them. And we will be looking at some more verses of the Quran and hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that explain more about that importance of keeping good ties, not only with the parents, but with all your relatives, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents. It is very, very important in the religion of Islam to keep the ties of relationship with those people who are from your family. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if one or both of them reaches old age, don't even say uff. It's like don't even go, huh. Don't even make a noise like that in front of your parents. Don't even show to them that type of annoyance or that type of disappointment. That is how we should respect our parents. Not even to make a noise like that, my brothers and sisters. That is the type of respect that we must give to them as God, Allah has ordered in the Quran. And don't repulse them, don't turn them away, don't push them away. But speak to them words of honor. Honor them. Say good words to them, words of respect. And out of mercy, lower to them the wing of humility and pray for them and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon them, remembering in your prayer that they took care of you when you were small. So we should look after their needs and we should care for them in reality, my brothers and sisters, just as they used to care for us when we were little children. And that is the type of honor and respect that we should give to our parents. And also, Luqman advised his son, and it's advice not only to his son, but to all sons and all daughters. Be thankful to me and to your parents. To me is the final goal. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the Quran. Be thankful to me and to your parents, and to me is the final goal. And that is the same thing that Luqman advised his son. Be good to your parents. Treat them well. And look, my brothers and sisters, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has linked being good to parents to worshipping Him, to being kind to your parents to worshipping Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Abdullah ibn Abbas, he related that, radiallahu anhu, that 3 verses of the Quran were revealed, joining 3 pairs. And one part of any of these pairs is not acceptable without the other. Allah the Most High says, obey Allah and obey the Messenger. Therefore, if someone obeys Allah but not the Prophet, it will not be accepted from him. As a side point, my brothers and sisters, this is a clear refutation of those people who say that the Quran is enough for us. We do not need to refer to the hadith and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Most certainly, whoever does not obey the Prophet has disobeyed Allah. So if you do not obey the Messenger, obedience to Allah doesn't exist. So that's 2 verses, 2 things that are joined. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, establish the prayer and give the zakah. So if you don't give the zakah, then your prayer is not going to be benefiting you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, be grateful to me and your parents. Therefore, a person who is thankful to Allah but not to his parents, it will not be accepted from him. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah's pleasure consists in the pleasure of your parents, and Allah's anger consists in the anger of your parents. Indeed, my dear brothers and sisters, your parents are your paradise and your hellfire. They are your means to paradise or your means to hellfire. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that paradise lies at the feet of your mother, at being kind to your mother, obeying your mother. And no one has more right to your kindness than your mother. Your mother bore you for 9 months, weakness upon weakness. She suffered sickness. She suffered carrying you. And then even when you were born, it didn't end. She raised you, she reared you, she fed you, she clothed you, she bathed you, she changed you. This is all the things that your mother has done for you. You can never, ever, ever repay your mother. There is nothing you can do. The Prophet ﷺ said, there is nothing you can do to pay your mother back. Your father, if you found your father a slave and you bought him and set him free, then you would have paid your father back. Your mother, you can't pay her back. There's nothing you can do. In fact, it happened in the time of one of the companions that a man came and he had carried his mother on his back throughout the whole of the Hajj, the pilgrimage. And you can imagine, my brothers and sisters, the hot sun, the dust, the long distance, traveling from Mecca to Arafah, from Arafah to Muzdalifah, from Muzdalifah to Mina, to the Jamrat, then back to Mecca again, then back to Mina again. All of this, he carried his mother on his back. And then he came to Umar ibn al-Khattab, who was the caliph of the Muslims at the time. And he said, Ya Umar, did I pay my mother back now? Do you see what I have done? Did I pay her back? And he said, young man, you did not even pay her back for one tear she shed when she gave birth to you. That is the right of the mother. That is the status of the mother. So kindness is due to her. Even in one instance, a man came and he wanted to join the Prophet ﷺ and his companions in the fighting to defend the lands of the Muslims, to participate in a very noble and high deed, and that is to fight in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to defend the Muslims and their land and their religion. So he wanted to participate in this, and the Prophet ﷺ asked him, do you have parents who are old? And he said yes. He said, then go back and serve them. Go back and serve them. This is what the Prophet ﷺ told him to do. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, may his face be rubbed in the dust. It's an expression meaning, may he be humiliated. The person who one or both of his parents reaches old age and he doesn't enter paradise by serving them. This is, subhanallah, something the Prophet ﷺ, a very, very deep and profound thing the Prophet ﷺ warned us about, that you could expect to be humiliated. How is it that your mother and your father reach old age and you don't enter paradise by serving them? And what a beautiful thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you and give you paradise, and you into paradise because you have served and cared for and taken care of your parents when they reach old age. So that is something very, very important, my dear brothers and sisters. So the Prophet ﷺ said, shall I not inform you about the greatest of major sins? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, making shirk with Allah and undutifulness to parents. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, a person who is disrespectful to his parents, the one who keeps reminding others of the favors he has done to him, and the one who is addicted to wine will not enter paradise. Both Bukhari and Muslim collected it. And he said, if Allah knew of something more minor which one could say to injure his parents than saying uff, and that goes back to the verse that we were discussing, the verse that says, do not even say uff to your parents. If Allah knew of something more minor than that, then he would have prohibited that as well. No matter what a person does who is disrespectful to their parents, he will not enter paradise. And no matter what the person does who is kind to his parents, he will not enter the fire. And he said, Allah has cursed the person who is disrespectful to his parents. And he said also, may Allah postpone the punishment of any sin until the day of resurrection, except disrespecting parents. Its punishment is swift, meaning that it starts in this world prior to the day of resurrection. So my brothers and sisters, it is not only the success in the life to come that is relying and depending upon being good to and obeying and respecting your parents, but also in this life. It is a source of success or failure. I advise you, my brothers and sisters, I strongly advise you that if you wish to see success, worldly success, then be careful how you treat your parents. Be respectful to them and be obedient to them. To how much, to what extent? Well, look at this saying of the Prophet ﷺ. A person came to the Prophet and said, Messenger of Allah, my father wants to take all of my property. And the Prophet ﷺ said, you and all your property belong to your father. Subhanallah. Qab al-Ahbar was asked about the meaning of disrespect to parents, to which he replied, if the father or mother assigns him a task, he does not do it. And the people who will be on the heights are the people who set out for jihad without the pleasure of their fathers or their mothers, and they were killed in battle. Their being killed fighting in the cause of Allah prevents them from the fire, and their disobedience to their parents prevents them from entering paradise. Therefore, they remain on Al-Araf, the heights, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides their case. 3 times the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, when he was asked, who has the most right to my kindness? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, your mother. And then after that he asked, again, your mother. Then after that, again the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, your mother. And after that, then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, your father. Subhanallah, my dear brothers and sisters. It is so important for us to obey and be dutiful to our parents. Once a man came to Abu Darda radiallahu anhu and said, Abu Darda, I have married a woman, but my mother has ordered me to divorce her. Abu Darda replied, I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, a parent is the best of the gates of Jannah. So as you wish, lose this gate or guard it. Guarding this gate means obeying your parents and treating them with kindness, but there is no obedience to them if they order you anything involving sin, that is disobedience to Allah and His Messenger. And I want to mention finally, brothers and sisters, before we finish this session, that obedience to parents is, as we have clearly seen, one of the most important things, and disobedience to parents is one of the greatest sins. But obedience to parents and treating your mother kindly and nicely is never an excuse for you to oppress your wife or to disobey your husband or to oppress any other human being. Everyone must be given their rights. Everyone must be given their due. We do not oppress a wife or a husband or a child in order to please a parent. Rather, we should please our parents and do our duty to them, as well as doing our duty and fulfilling our obligations to ourselves, to our wives and husbands, and to our children. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to be from those people who are respectful and obedient and treat their parents well. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.